My media research assignment is based on Ronald Barthes' communication theory of semiotics. I chose to watch the film Two Distant Strangers from 2021 in French to study the use of signs and their invoked meanings to understand the movie's story. To walk you through this project, I am going to briefly discuss what semiotics is, how it is used in film, and then connect this information to the movie to showcase the use of semiotics in the film. In their books, Philip, Mando, and Murray state that all forms of communication rely on the use of an interpretation of signs on page 58. The director's or producer's way of communicating the movie's story is not only through language, but a huge part of it is our way of interpreting the signs they give us. This idea is supported in the Media Insider's video at 2 minutes and 6 seconds, where he clarifies that signs are polysemic, meaning that they have multiple meanings. It is up to the viewer or the person to assign or interpret the meaning they choose. A sign can be anything: a symbol, a hand gesture, a color, shape, sound, etc. The list goes on. One thing made abundantly clear in Griffin's book, A First Look at Communication Theory from 2012, is a sign is the combination of a signifier and a signified on page 333. The signifier and signified can be easily confused with one another, so I'm going to break down each part. According to Griffin's book, the signifier is the physical form of the sign as we perceive it through our senses, an image, while the signified is the meaning we associate it with, on page 333. The meanings we associate with these signs have their own categories as well. In the Media Insider's video, he defines one meaning as denotation, which is a literal meaning we assign to the sign. For example, the street sign with two people walking side by side. The literal meaning, or its denotation, is two people walking side by side. Along with its denotation is the connotation, which is the signified meaning. Following the previous example, the sign of two people walking side by side is interpreted as a crosswalk. A sign itself, the matter in which semiotics studies, is a combination of the two. Signifier and signified make a sign. Roland Barthes' communication theory of semiotics is so complex because of a few aspects of semiotics that we have to consider. Phillips, Mando, and Murray's book points out that signs are at once fixed and forever changing and display immutability and mutability. They are immutable in the sense that signs are fixed as far as the individual is concerned, yet they are mutable in the sense that language changes and evolves. This is from page 58 and 59. To summarize, signs are similar to language in terms of its usage and how they evoke a certain term to provide meaning, and is ultimately up to the individual for interpretation. Considering this, because language is always changing and evolving, so are the signified meanings of the signs without changing the physicality of it. Now that I've gotten the basis of semiotics down, I will discuss its use in film. There are 4 categories of semiotics used in film. This includes mise-en-scène, which is the set, the costumes, the hair, the makeup. There's sound, like music, sound effects, voices, and very related to voices is their tone. Tone can indicate meaning, like are they nice, aggressive, rude, polite, and the absence of sound usually indicates fear or suspense. Then we have camera work and angles. The way the camera is framed, the composition, and the movement of how the camera is how it creates meaning for the audience. And finally, there's editing, which is the use of sequencing, how one clip moves to another, which creates meaning to the audience as well. In film, signs are carefully selected to produce a specific meaning. When a sign is used repeatedly or over and over for the same reason, it can become a myth. This means that there is a dominant connotation of a sign. The movie I watched is based on a strong myth typically white supremacists hold towards Black people, and that is that the dominant connotation of this myth is that Black people are associated with crime. This ends up putting innocent Black lives in danger. Finally, I'll discuss how semiotics is used in the film Two Distant Strangers from 2021. The basis of the whole movie is about a Black man who's stuck in a time loop with a white racist police officer who is determined to kill him. The loop restarts every single time the Black man dies. I will be going over the 4 categories of semiotics used in film pretty sparsely throughout this list, so I will mention camera work and then give my reasoning in the movie, but I will probably mention camera work or editing or sound or color or mise-en-scene a few different times, just in a different order. To start, for camera work, the movie starts with various close-ups of angles of a man's apartment, showing off everyday items like a dog, coffee, dog treats, etc. This sets the scenery for rhythm, tradition, or daily schedule that the main character has, and it's setting the tone for his everyday life, kind of indicating the message that this is a normal story, or there's nothing suspenseful or uncanny about the story so far. Then a combination of sound and mise-en-scene occurs at 5 minutes and 40 seconds. There's very upbeat, happy music. The character is wearing yellow, which is signifying happiness. It's a sunny day outside, and the man is smiling, also signifying happiness. But then at 7 minutes and 15 seconds, during his aggressive arresting or apprehension, a sharp, eerie music plays, signifying fear, horror, and just terrifying. Back to camera work and editing. At 6 minutes and 5 seconds, the angles of the camera help imply what the officer was trying to accuse the main character of. The camera showed the pack of cash falling on the main character's back, then focused on the cigarette in the main character's hand during his interaction with the police officer, and then referred to the cash on the floor again. This camera angle seemed to follow the police officer's gaze, signifying the officer's intentions to accuse the main character of selling drugs. During the main character's apprehension, the camera showed close-ups of the officer's grunting face when strangling the main character, paired with close-ups of the main character being strangled and losing his consciousness. These clips were done back and forth, which is a form of editing, the sequence in which the clips were used. This signified a lot of intensity, violence, and just kind of putting in that fear into the scene of running out of air from strangulation. The shaky and chaotic clips of the officers piling up on the main character also signify their violence as well. Color and mise-en-scene is used interchangeably in this movie. There's a lot of yellow at the beginning of the movie. The main character is wearing yellow in every time loop, so that always is signifying happiness, even though throughout the movie he discovers he's going to get killed. Each time the main character gets arrested in these time loops, the sky, although it's a slight change, goes from a sunny day into a gray sky. The gray signifies a few different things in these scenes. Obviously, it's death or fear and loss of air for life or strangulation, but it also signifies the kind of normality that his life was before. It wasn't all that abnormal before until he discovered he was in a time loop. And finally, sound. A common theme in every scene with the police officers in this movie is their tone. Their tone can indicate meaning, as we discussed before, and in this movie, the police officer's tone sounds loud and demanding. This indicates his hatred and aggressiveness towards Black people. In contrast, everyone's tone towards the police officers is quiet and polite, indicating their fear of the police officer's anger. A strong use of camera work in this movie is used to tell the message of the story, even though it's already heavily implied. It's reinforced with the angle shown in 23 minutes and 40 seconds. It shows the writing "Say Their Names," George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and other names listed of Black victims from police brutality. In conclusion, semiotics was used in this movie to showcase the Black experience with police in America.